men's fragrances that never go out of style. So some fragrances, they're produced because of certain trends, maybe to be really sweet or really spicy or this or that, but I've compiled a small list of men's fragrances that I think are pretty timeless, and they'll remain timeless for many years to come. And as always, all the fragrances that I mentioned will be available in the Amazon associate links down in the description below. I'm going to start with kind of an obvious option, which is Creed Aventus, specifically. This is kind of the one of the best modern men's fragrance choices. And the thing about Aventus is that it's super versatile. It was just designed to be masculine, versatile, likable, adaptable, basically all the good things, good performance. And it's really, when it comes down to it, a relatively simple fragrance. It's mainly just citrus notes, some heavier notes to ground it, make it more masculine, but for the most part it is relatively simple. It's refreshing, it's light, it's bold, but it does work. It really does what it sets out to do, which is to be a luxurious yet functional men's fragrance. And now it is a top shelf option, very luxurious, very expensive, but again, it does work really well. It's an extremely attractive men's fragrance. And because it's the way it is, I would say it's pretty timeless and pretty classic. It doesn't try to do anything fancy, anything weird. Again, it's just pretty simple and straightforward for this type of fragrance. And again, it does what it sets out to do. There's no frills about it. So because it is so simple, I definitely think this is just going to withstand the test of time and continue to be popular. Now, that is if they don't alter it, because I have heard that, Creed keeps doing some things with their fragrances. They reformulate them. They're a little bit weaker, not as good as before. I'm not sure how true that is really, because I haven't, I've tried this sample specifically. But, as long as they don't mess it up with reformulations, Aventus should be good to go for many, many years. Now, moving on from this, one of my favorite kind of men's staples as well is Dior Homme. Any Dior Homme, but I am partial to the original here. I think that's a really wonderful option. You cannot go wrong with Dior Homme. It is also kind of a simple option, but I think simplicity is kind of the key when it comes to timelessness. This, again, it's a pretty straightforward, very fresh yet masculine type of fragrance. Now, the original specifically, which I think is one of the best ones, has an iris note in it. Some men think it makes it a little more feminine, that iris note, because it does have a little bit of sweetness, but if anything, it could be considered a unisex option, but, it is still a men's fragrance. It's very nice. It still is masculine. And primarily, it's just a fresh option. I always think this is best for, it's kind of reminiscent of springtime. The weather is still a little bit cool, but it's warming up a little bit. This is pretty similar to, that sort of feeling. And it's just nice. It lasts a surprisingly long time for being this type of lighter, fresher fragrance. It's going to last 7 hours, maybe even 8, so definitely quite a long time for this type of fragrance. And again, you do get some variation between the different types of Dior Homme. You have the Sport, you have the Eau de Toilette, Intense, all for men. But for the most part, any version of Dior Homme, at least in my experience, is pretty timeless and kind of hard to dislike. But moving on from this one, another good option, also from Creed actually, this is Green Iris Tweed. This is similar to Aventus in the fact that it's extremely classy, masculine, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And this has kind of proved itself already, because this came out in the 80s, I think the early 80s, I believe. And it's still popular, people still wear it. It's primarily a lemon verbena, ambergris musk type of fragrance. Very attractive, and for the most part it lasts longer than you would expect for this type of light fragrance, because it is quite light and refreshing. about 6 hours, bordering on 7, which is pretty good for, you know, light fragrances like this. But for the most part, this is kind of the gentleman's fragrance. Extremely sophisticated, very formal, more mature, kind of an all business type of fragrance. And again, it does a really good job of what it sets out to do, which is to be, again, a more formal, sophisticated type of men's fragrance. And really, this is, in terms of men's fragrances, this would definitely be in my top 10 just because it does have an instantly recognizable scent profile. I have not come across anything that smells remotely similar to this, so when you wear it, you really do stand out from the crowd. You know, people will turn their heads to figure out where that smell is coming from, but definitely a good option if you want to A, stand out, and B, have a more classic, sophisticated scent about you. Then, for a more modern option, I think this one is also pretty classic, Terre d'Hermès Eau Givrée. This is a Juniper Berry, kind of woodsy, very fresh type of fragrance. Now, this is on the lighter side of fragrances on this list. This probably isn't going to last longer than 5 hours overall, but the smell alone is delicious, especially if you're going for an icy cold, refreshing, clean smell, because that is exactly what this is, which is nice because it blends that freshness with kind of intense masculinity as well, and it's kind of rugged but still really clean and fresh, so it does a really good job of blending those different variants. And you can really picture a natural setting with this one because it's extremely natural smelling. You know, you could picture the trees, you could picture really cold, a cold river rushing past you, a glacier, you know, that sort of thing. So, definitely a good option if you don't mind a fragrance with lower longevity but still smells really good and refreshing, and also, you know, a good, more sophisticated option. Then the last one that I have is, probably everyone knows about this one. Dylan Blue, Versace, obviously. This has already been around for quite a long time. And out of, especially Versace fragrances, this is a good, it's like the rock, you know? It's not going anywhere. Like some fragrances like Versace Eros, that goes out of fashion because it's a very particular type of fragrance, you know? But this is more simplistic. It's not doing anything crazy like Versace Eros. It's not super strong, it's not super sweet, it's not super this or that. It's a simple, straightforward, slightly metallic, slightly aquatic, and citrusy men's fragrance. And even today, it's still an extremely popular and commonly purchased option. And again, hard to go wrong with this one. It has really good longevity, a really good smell, has some pepperiness in it mixed with the refreshing notes that it has. You know, if anything, people could frown on it and say, oh, it's a cheaper type of fragrance. I think it's like $60, but especially as a more casual men's fragrance, this is really hard to beat because it doesn't smell cheap, it just smells nice. And people, you know, this is definitely a compliment getter. If you want to get easy compliments, you wear Dylan Blue. So, at least in my opinion, I don't think Dylan Blue is going anywhere anytime soon. It's definitely kind of a modern, classic option. But that is pretty much my list here of fragrances that really, they're not going to go out of fashion anytime soon. But again, that is my video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, of course, you could always leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I make videos like these throughout the week, so stick around for those.